you very much. Okay, we'll go ahead and move. We have a set of minutes that will need to be approved from the January 20th, 2022. So if you guys have a chance to look at those, and if you're good with them.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go ahead and move. We have a set of minutes that will need to be approved from the January 20th, 2022. So if you guys have a chance to look at those, and if you're good with them.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go ahead and move. We have a set of minutes that will need to be approved from the January 20th, 2022. So if you guys have a chance to look at those, and if you're good with them.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go ahead and move. We have a set of minutes that will need to be approved from the January 20th, 2022. So if you guys have a chance to look at those, and if you're good with them.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go ahead and move. We have a set of minutes that will need to be approved from the January 20th, 2022. So if you guys have a chance to look at those, and if you're good with them.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go ahead and move. We have a set of minutes that will need to be approved from the January 20th, 2022. So if you guys have a chance to look at those, and if you're good with them.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go ahead and move. We have a set of minutes that will need to be approved from the January 20th, 2022. So if you guys have a chance to look at those, and if you're good with them.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go ahead and move. We have a set of minutes that will need to be approved from the January 20th, 2022. So if you guys have a chance to look at those, and if you're good with them.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go ahead and move that. We have a set of minutes that will need to be approved from the January 20th, 2022. So if you guys have a chance to look at those, and if you're good with them.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We approve the minutes. All in favor, say
from last year, and things are going well. Obviously, they increased their participation, revenues were up, so they're excited about what the season brought forth last year, and so just thankful for the support that the city gives them, as usual. So they did provide packets, and they've been sending out letters to request, sponsors to continue, and then new sponsors. So they have sponsor letters going out. But yeah, things are going well. They have some ramp applications in the pipe, and I believe that you guys will be meeting on Monday for that. So they just wanted to let the city know that they're appreciative of what we do, and also how the season went last year. So
Okay. Anyone else?
Youth Council had a fun day. So they were, what's the term? They felt kind of special.
They should.
Well,
They got the two.
They did.
Yeah.
And they said that when it was over, but I think what they really appreciated was the ability to go into meetings and do their own thing. Not necessarily be lectured to, but to say, here's an assignment, sit down, do it, and I think they appreciated. They saw more than they did if somebody would have liked anything. Yeah, so they had a good time. Yeah.
Well, I had a chance to sit next to Erin, and she was pretty excited talking about the group and what their thought process was on how they were making more of a walkability. They were challenged to create a city block, right? Or
No, they took so many acres. Like
so many acres and created. What would you do with that? And so they really took the walkability and eliminating any type of kind of motorized transit and try to make it more of a user-friendly walking community, which sounded interesting the way she was describing it.
Yeah, and Ty set up a meeting with Stuart Barlow and Brad Wilson.
Stuart Adams?
Stuart Adams.
I changed his name. Stewart's is Stewart. Stewie, Adams is Stewie. So anyway.
The sophomore.
The sophomore, yeah. So was Terry. But
I did see Dave, one of the local media had a picture of Speaker Wilson and President Adams discuss, they're on the floor of the House.
Right.
And with the members of the Kaysville City Council, or the Kaysville Youth Council. And I'm like, oh, and that's Dave. Oh, so Dave, that went out to the rest of the world.
Oh, on Dave.
Yeah, you were the Kaysville City Council member.
there's not a person alive that can believe that. I'd say that's been photoshopped. Yeah, they came in when we were in the chambers, the Kaysville group.
Yeah.
We kindly told them to go sit down over there.
And then they got a photo.
Yeah, the photo was I'm sure it was our group. Yeah, I would never stand it. I do like the long-haired council member. I don't know.
Blackham.
Blackham?
Yeah.
We talk all the time when we see each other, and he's a good guy. Yeah.
Anyone else?
I attended my first mosquito abatement meeting last week. And, yeah.
Got 45 more years.
Yeah, that's what I hear. 2068, is that what you said? Yeah. Anyway, the question that came up for the cities was if and when a case of West Nile, a pool of West Nile is identified, should they automatically identify or notify the health department? Should they identify or notify the city, or just the board member, myself being for Layton? And the consensus was the health department's being notified. They're going to notify the city if need be, if it's in close proximity to a large residential population, so the consensus was the health department and the board member, and we'll take that to the city if needed.
But this is after they kill
In the process.
them. Yeah, it's okay.
Well, good. All more reason why I'm glad that we have a
Yeah.
elected official that, that'd be good.
And they also honored Richard as well for his many years of service.
I don't think anybody's gonna top that.
I don't think anybody wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy has.
Yeah, but yours is
Yours is
tiny. There's a difference there. Yeah.
I'm with you.
Okay, anyone else?
We had League of Cities and Towns meeting, so you saw the board and what the legislature's planning on trying to push. And so it's just a matter of finding the areas that we think are beneficial to actually try to have a discussion. I could not believe some of the comments from people who are around us, if I'm being honest. Just like, we don't care what the speaker says. We don't. Who cares what he says? And I'm like, and you guys wonder why you're basically in this position. If that's the way you feel and you're a city manager of a not so small city, and that's the way you go about it. That's why we have to deal with them, is because they just don't care. And it's just bizarre. I feel bad I was talking to Cam, the head of the league, and I was just saying he has a really difficult job because he has to basically be the front to some cities who are super loud about thumbing their nose, and then all of us who are trying to do the right thing are the ones that have to suffer the consequences. It's just kind of frustrating. But it's looked to be going to be a difficult one for cities, I think, was my takeaway. So I don't know if we can add to that, but.
I'm gonna, just because I rarely get to report, because we usually run out of time, but I'm just gonna quickly tell you that I know I've reported in the past that the sewer board were looking to adjust their impact fees, and that thing got kicked back 3 or 4 different times, and it finally got passed. So I think you're gonna see it come through now where it's, and that's where they're gonna change it to where it's based on units on the multifamily, so it's not just the whole unit, it will be the individual units, so it'll play out good for I think for the cities. So that's finally done.
Mayor, can I ask, will they give the city a copy of that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, probably should have received, if you haven't received it already, I'll make some calls. Okay, I'll make some calls, because I know that got passed last week. So, the only other thing I can say is really in December, it wasn't hardly any meetings really. I mean, well, it was more Christmas meetings. But interesting enough, I know we talked a lot about the 911 dispatch, and in our COG meeting last night, we had Kelly Sparks there, and he was going to report, and then a lot of the agenda items prior to that kind of chewed up most of the time, and Kelly needed to be to another meeting, and so he was willing to give the hybrid quick synopsis, but he did say, he says, realistically, I have a good 20 minutes that I need to share with everybody. And at the same time, he acknowledged that there's a meeting next week up north here, so we opted to kind of just say, you know what, wait until after your meeting next week and report to us. So we didn't get a chance to report to all the mayors last night, but I thought it was good that we had him on the agenda anyway. Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, I'll go ahead and move on to item number 2. We're good?
Can I mention something there?
Sure.
Not about the council, but at the meeting we had a couple days ago, the strategic plan meeting, which we appreciate, there was a request made for copies of the county proposed animal control ordinance. So we have paper copies, not too long, so I want to pass that out. If you take one thing they getting a copy of the meeting. And one thing they did do, which people we felt good about, was that they have decided not to provide the two options.
Oh, good.
They adopted the Schedule A, which is the 3 to the base plus the 4. So I think that was a
Plus 1.
wise. Yeah. Yes.
24.
Right.
Plus 4.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's mesquite math. Too much dishwater. But we thought that was positive. And is commission is going to look at it for adoption on the 31st. So there's opportunity to give input. But
That's good. I actually got a call today, which I was gonna talk to Gary afterwards about regarding the dog, so it's interesting, good timing. I tried to explain from the state where the process, but it sounds like it's a pretty bad situation. Anything else, Sim? All right, well, let's go ahead then and go on to item number 2, which is our general plan amendment. And Chad's got probably some slides to share with us as well as go through what we're voting on.
Right.
So I'm going to take some time in this meeting. I won't take this amount of time in our regular meeting to go through this in this level of detail. Before I start, I try not to editorialize too much. I'm going to, and I want to make sure before I say what I'm going to say that the council knows that we are not one of those thumb your nose cities. We are always our approach is to try to be cooperative, to try to comply with state law. That being said, I'm going to talk about some frustrations. And I want to just explain what happened. Some of you know some of the background, but I think this will be helpful as we look at these modifications. So there is a need to make some modifications to our moderate income housing plan element of our general plan. The reason it's before you is that it is a general plan amendment, so it requires we go through a public hearing whenever we change the general plan. So this is just the background. You probably remember just several months ago in September, we adopted our changes to the general plan in response to the state legislation that required a few modifications. We tried to comply with that to the best that we could. We submitted it prior to the deadline on October 1st. And then, as you all know, you received a notice of noncompliance on November 18th. Now you're in good company because around 75% of the cities in the state also received that same notice. So we're not alone on that. The changes that we were asked to make to our plan are predominantly related to our implementation plan. I'll show you a little bit about that in a second. We need to have those modifications due back to the state by February 18th. So we've tried to really push this through. We've worked very cooperatively with the state, with the Department of Workforce Services and their housing folks. They've been good to work with. I don't want to in any way try to throw them under the bus. They have a difficult job to do. They're trying to implement a very imperfect state statute. And I know that they're doing the best they can. So we don't want to throw them under the bus at all. That being said, there were some frustrations. So I want to give just an example of, again, the language. We were asked to put together a moderate income housing element that provided an opportunity to meet the moderate income housing needs for the next 5 years. We had to select, as you know, three criteria, plus because we have a front runner station, we had to do a couple more. So we've got some additional criteria that we have to comply with. And it says, this is the key here, in drafting the implementation plan, we need to establish a timeline, we need to have specific measures, and those are the things that most of the cities got held up on. Now, one very key word right here, though, I'm going to focus on is ongoing, right? So as we looked at these strategies, we looked at that language in state law where it says one time or ongoing, and most of the changes that we were required to make to our plan had to do with us using the term ongoing. Now we felt like we were okay because it talks about ongoing in the state code, but there's a little bit different interpretation, which is fine. That's their job to do that as those representatives of the state agencies. So I want to just give you an example though, before I jump into our language that we've changed. This is, we asked, and many cities asked, for examples of compliant language from those cities that actually complied on their first go-around. This is an example of one that complied. And I'm going to show you this just to show the difference between theirs and ours. So this gives, you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 year benchmarks. Again, this is not ours. I don't know which city it is. They gave us the language, but they didn't tell us which cities these were from. So this is the language though. You can see that each of those are color coded to go with one of those benchmarks, right? So you've got I think that's the same color green. This is definitely the 5 year benchmark there. This is probably year 4 benchmark there. So what you'll notice though is that in this particular plan, this is all talking about some future date, right? This is saying, we're gonna look at this, by year 5, we're gonna adopt a mixed-use zone code, right? So they say, here's all the steps we're gonna go through. This is a great implementation plan. I definitely would never speak ill of this. I think the city did a good job of doing this. But there's a big distinction between this and what Layton's been doing. And that is, this is a plan that says someday in the future, we're going to adopt a mixed-use zone and a code. Big difference with Layton, we've done that already. So as we looked at our language, we did use that word ongoing. We thought we were safe because it said that in the state code, but again, they asked us to be a little more specific. But again, in our first original language you approved back in September, we were just trying to acknowledge, hey, we're on board. This is an ongoing thing. We've adopted mixed-use zones. Not only that, but in October of 2021, we did a general plan amendment to facilitate another 568 units trailside development. That has a mix of multifamily, single-family homes, townhomes. So our goal was to say, hey, here's an example. This is an ongoing thing. Here's an example of one we've done recently to comply with that particular language. This new language that we're proposing is a little different. And this has already been looked at by the folks from Department of Workforce Services that said this language will pass as we submit it. But this says, essentially, we're going to support individual applications that comply with higher densities allowed in the general plan throughout
so good.
2023.
You're giving
Rein
too
in a
much.
little bit. You
So,
see what
there you
we're
go.
actually talking about.
We said we do that through years 2 and 5. One of the things that we told the state agencies was, or the folks from the state, is we don't have any control over an individual property owner coming in to apply for a zone change.
Yeah.
What we can do is we can general plan these properties. We can say, here they are, these are general plan, or in some cases, we've already changed the zoning to mixed use, but we can't tell them you have to come in and develop your property now. So again, they understood that, but they said we need to have something that's specific to a time frame and a year. So we said, okay, we'll continue to monitor that through to 2023, and for the next 2 to 5 years, we're going to continue to look at those zoning. So that new language has been reviewed. They've told us that will work for that language, but that's the reason. That's not unique to Layton. Many other cities, because of that state code language, use the word ongoing, and they were deemed to be non-compliant because of that. So there you go. That's actually a minor thing for us. That was not a big deal. This one's bigger for me, and this one really does get under my skin a little bit. So we, those 23, 27 strategies that we talk about that need to be adopted by the cities, one of those that's been on the books for a couple of years was that we amend our land use regulations to reduce our parking requirements. We were on board from day one. As you know, a couple of years ago, we did our own study. We did our own parking study. We had an intern that went out all hours of the day to count parking. We had some really, really good numbers to base this on. So back in 2020, we adopted that parking reduction ordinance. Now, here's another city's implementation plan. I have paraphrased. I want to make sure you know this is not the exact language, but it's very similar to this. And I don't know which city it was because they didn't tell us which cities this language came from. But so this particular city says, in the next 5 years, we're going to consider adopting some standards, some reduced standards near our transit stations. So by year 5, we'll do that. We'll consider those changes. That plan was deemed compliant. Ours was, hey, guess what? We've adopted those. We adopted them a couple of years ago. That plan was deemed to be non-compliant. So the city who did that, letter H, got a designation of non-compliant, where the city has not done it yet, was deemed to be compliant. So when we asked the state about that, we said to them, how could we become compliant on this? Because we've already done this.
Yeah.
Their answer to us was, well, you need to be creative in your answer on this. That's the word they used. They said, maybe you could look at monitoring those developments that use that reduced parking regulation over the next
So the
year.
assumption is basically that no city is doing anything.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So this was a frustration to
We
us.
got our hands on because we've done it.
We voiced our frustration. We said that's and respectfully, and they understood, the state staff. We said that just doesn't seem right to us, that the cities that are actually acting in good faith and adopting and implementing the things you've asked us to are deemed to be non-compliant. So yeah, we put together some language. You'll see in the ordinance that the language for this one talks about monitoring and keeping track of the developments that take advantage of these reduced parking regulations over the next 5 years. And we'll do that.
Sean, I have a question.
Yeah.
Had you considered putting something like continue reduced changes to parking standards through year 5 or whatever? Would that have also been deemed non-compliant? Because they're saying that the time frame is their issue, but we've already done it. So
It's continuing.
we would continue
But
to.
that's like
do it.
ongoing.
It is, but it's not the word.
There's a lot of ways we could have done, that's potentially one that we could have done.
I just, for things that have already been done,
What they suggested to us, to answer your question, what they suggested was that we have things like monitor or promote, or, as another example, I don't have a slide for this, but for our accessory dwelling unit ordinance, that's another one where we've already adopted that. So the ideas that they gave us was, well, you can publish something on your website that says that this is an available tool for people, which is fine, we can do that. You can keep track of the number of ADUs, which we already have in our plan, but that's the kind of things they said, you just need to attach a year to it. So we did that. We've
So we're
taken care
not
of
supposed
that.
to admit what we've done, is my take from what you're saying. Don't admit what you've already done, but just say here's.
So you're gonna do it?
You're gonna
We've
do
already
it,
done
or,
That's our frustration, is that
yeah.
we don't feel like, and we're not alone. There's other cities that have done the same thing, they've acted in good faith. Their plans were deemed to be non-compliant, even though they've already done things that the state code asks us to do. So that's the end of my editorial remarks.
So we were in the meeting, the League of Cities and Towns legislative policy meeting that Zach referenced. And when Cam was up talking about it, showing that 75% of the cities were non-compliant, that the legislature was ticked. They were ticked. Like, what are you guys, what's going
This is
on?
exactly what we need.
They
What
were,
you guys are doing. This is exactly why
they're not getting this message,
they're not getting the message.
Yeah.
apparently.
That's why I'm sharing it with you. I hope we get this message to them. We've shared this with the state staff. I don't know that they're gonna take that up to the next level, but it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. We're not alone. Like I said, there's the other cities that were kind of dinged for this ongoing language were good actor cities. These are people that are trying to cooperate and do what the state's asked us to do.
How many do you think were just because of the language and not wanting to do it?
I don't have a good finger on that, but I can tell you, I know some of the cities that we talked to, Bountiful's one good example. They were deemed non-compliant for basically a word. They just didn't have the exact word that the state code used. So their entire moderate income housing plan is thrown out the window for a word.
It's lawyers, honestly. And
Well-
I don't mean that, it's lawyers. Because if you say ongoing and then you say you've already done it, it's not ongoing.
Yeah.
That's
It's
just
no
how
longer,
that's just
it's
lawyers
no
think.
longer a plan.
Yeah.
So Barry, is this is what they referred to yesterday, that there was that 90-day cure that
That's what he was saying, Cam was saying.
But the serious thing about this, you saw the list of penalties, right?
Yeah.
Of suggested penalties.
Right.
Well, when I go through a red light, I know exactly what's going to happen when the officer's watching me go through the red light. Here, you don't have a red light violation. We don't know what we've got. 462 to penalize us for being non-compliant with 462 by taking away our BNC road funds, or by giving attorney's fees to somebody to attack the fact that it wasn't written right.
Yeah.
Those are all wrong. That's just wrong for them to do that. And so what they did was, this generated some, oh yeah, we knew the cities were doing this anyway.
It's almost
So
a setup for
penalized.
failure, because they knew that the words that they didn't want in there, but didn't let you know, or baited you by saying ongoing in their document.
Yeah, it should not have been non-compliant. It
And
should have been, these are the things we're concerned about, correct them, they're small things.
the bigger thing for us is that a city like Layton and others who have made a good faith effort to do this, to actually adopt the standards they want us to adopt, we're the ones that are being deemed non-compliant. That is not acceptable. That's something that has to be brought up to these folks, and that's why we're sharing that today. I'm not going to share this in a regular meeting, but the message is, we heard you, we made the changes. We're happy to try to do our part. We appreciate that you had staff that was willing to work with us on this. We've made some suggestions that first of all, if you're going to have some back and forth like this, that rather than saying your plan's not compliant, let's make corrections, like we do with the plan review. We don't deny a permit plan because it's non-compliant. We say, here's some corrections. If you make these corrections, we can approve your permit. That's the kind of thing that we'd like to see here, so it doesn't become this this dance or whatever you want to call it between, well, you're non-compliant or you are compliant. And again, you know, we're happy these folks are considering making those changes. Hope they do. We already did. So,
Hey, Chad, so let me ask you this, knowing that there's the hard deadline in place, will they entertain, if you've already got your plan done and you turn it in, let's say tomorrow, will they give you feedback like next week so that it then gives you a chance to know whether you have to tweak it again?
yeah, they committed to that, but we didn't take that chance. We actually submitted our stuff to state staff back in December and got their thumbs up on it before. So the language that you're adopting tonight's already been reviewed by the Department of Workforce
That's
Services.
what I'm saying, so we know that we're not
We know the same people.
thrown into that
Yeah,
pile
they've
again.
reviewed it, they told us that language is fine, that they'll approve that language when we submit it. And we worked, like I said, they were good to work with us. They actually turned around their changes pretty quickly to us too. It was less than a week, so we appreciate that. And part of that is that our changes weren't that big. You saw them, they're pretty small changes, so. But anyway, we are, again, recommending approval of this. It is a general plan amendment, so we will have a public hearing. Happy to answer any other questions if you have questions about. There's a lot of language in there. I can answer questions on if you'd like. Or
And you're taking out 2 of the options, right?
yeah, we talked, and that was actually feedback from the state staff. When we talked to them, we said, is that, you know, what we had tried to show was that not only are we willing to do the minimum, we're doing more than the minimum.
Right.
And we said, is that to our advantage? And they said, probably not. You should probably just do, and we have strategies that are not in state code that we put in our plan, but they said probably not more than that, so.
Keep something in your pocket for later.
Don't admit we've been.
Well, that's kind of a dance that we did because we had all that information about entitlements, right?
Yeah.
Because their concept was this regulation it's just having this punishing effect and we just can't get anything approved. But once that got out into the system and the cities figured out that entitlements, what they were talking about, they set it out. And then the response was, well, it's not the entitlements, it's the infrastructure. So now they just changed it, so it's not the entitlements, because it used to be supply and demand, right? We can't get these things approved, but then when they realized there's, 111,000 entitled units in the state that they aren't building on, then it became a different question.
Yeah.
Which is just moving the ball, is what it's doing, moving the goalposts or whatever.
That information that we forwarded to you from the presentation with the legislators last week, you know, even the developers have now shown that they expect a surplus within the next couple of years of multifamily, so.
So I was gonna ask how would they respond to that, like, I think that was from Ivory Home,
It was,
wasn't it?
yeah.
That said that they're gonna meet high density demand in like next year.
Yeah.
Do they admit that now?
That's what they've said, yeah, I mean, that's right from their slides, so that's, you know, we've gone from 31,000 gap to we're gonna meet our multifamily needs within the next year, so it's hard to explain.
Well, I think that, and this is maybe just editorializing, this I guess is my job, but if they pass something this year, that's this big change, and then
Transformative.
the market actually just does it on its own next year, then they can take credit for it.
Yeah. Thank you, unless there's any other questions, that's all I had to share.
Thanks, Jack.
That was good.
I will say, John, I do like, I was reading that strategy 3.1 and 3.2. I do like the specificity of those goals and how they seem to help more at the actual resident level as opposed to behind the scenes where the resident doesn't necessarily translate to them. So, I mean, even though it was pain and you had to do a lot of extra work, I do appreciate the specificity around some of
Which
those.
one was 3.1 and 3.2?
It said the goal was to rehabilitate existing housing to increase rental opportunities, home ownership, retention, and reinvestment. And 3.1 said to promote the use of a home repair program supported by CDBG funds to extremely low and moderate income households to offer grants for maintaining and rehabilitating houses.
And those were strategies that we already had in our plan. The only change was to tweak the time frame. So those are great.
But that's what I mean, like
we agree. We think those
specifying
are.
that makes it easier for, people, the layperson to see it and know what that means. Because before when it says, support an entity that does X, Y, Z,
Yeah.
the lay people don't know what that means.
Yeah, we agreed that we can always improve, and we were grateful for some of that feedback, and we have made some good changes because of it, but I actually feel like those are the types of things that will actually make a difference. Those on the boots on the ground type changes, even some of the things that we talked. we had one of our representatives that said, hey, back in the day, we used to have a low interest program for first-time homeowners. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that's gonna make a difference. So, thank you.
And thanks for bringing it. I literally was asking the mayor about it the other day, and then we got the agenda, and I'm like, oh, good, here it is. So,
Chad, thanks for that email on the housing information too, earlier this week. Good stats of what you've done, that's really good when we're talking to legislators.
Yeah.
So I understand there was I guess, the county as well as the state was asking for that information as well, so did you just do that knowing that that was something that these guys asked for, or did that come through requests from them?
The Layton stats?
Yeah, the Layton stats, because I know we had that for our own private meeting that we were having with the legislature, but I didn't
Part of
know.
it is just every year we look at those numbers. We're at that point when we're looking at our annual numbers, but I think it's also informative to, as we hear things like cities are not approving enough units, we've consistently pushed back and said, you have all these units that we've got entitlements for, you're not building. What's
Right.
going on, you know, so.
I
The
can't
state
remember.
of county didn't ask for it. We were with the Bountiful that looked at it, and we were developing our own data. We asked for a copy of what they had, and we liked some of the format and the broader information that they were able to provide, and tried to supplement that with like specific
I wonder
data.
where Cameron got his information, because he reported on that at the youth thing, meeting. I want to say he had something like, wasn't it like 15, no, it was a state number, I want to say it was like 15,702 or something like that, just like us, they've already been approved, they can build anytime and no action has been taken.
I think that's the 111.
Yeah, the
I
lead,
thought it was.
Was that the 111?
Yeah.
Okay.
the league
Yeah, I was
did their
gonna
own
say-
study,
Yeah, I was going to
and reached
say.
out and asked cities to provide that information sometime back, when this
Yeah, I remember that.
saber rattling started.
Yeah, well, that's good. Good information. Thank you very much. Okay, today's zipping along. We are down to item number 3, which we understand you want to go into a closed meeting to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, including any form of water rights or watershed. I'll look for a motion.
council meeting this evening. It's January 19th. And we like to start our meetings with a prayer and a pledge. We take turns each month, and this particular month, Councilmember Morse is in charge. So I'm going to turn the time over to him.
Thank you, Mayor. If you stand, and we'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance, and afterwards we'll give an opening prayer. Our Father in heaven, we are grateful this evening to be gathered as a community here in Layton City. We're grateful for Thee and for the protections and the peace that we are able to meet in this evening. We're grateful for the employees of this great city and this governing body as well, and all who keep us safe, our first responders, our public utilities employees, and others. We ask that Thou would please bless us this evening with wisdom, help us to understand each other and keep our discussions civil. We're grateful once again for the water that we're receiving here in this valley. And these things we pray for and do in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay, thank you, Councilman Morse. Okay, Council, we have several sets of minutes to approve. Does anyone have any corrections or changes? If not, I'll look for a motion. And if you could, please state the date and the type of minutes they're applied to.
We're not allowed to shorten them up as quick as we can.
I didn't read them this time, so you get the challenge now.
I'll make a motion that we approve the strategic planning work meeting on the 17th of October, 2022. The Layton City Council work meeting on October 20th, 2022, and the City Council Strategic Planning Work Meeting on December 1st, 2022.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, it's been moved in second that we adopt the minutes as presented. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move down to our municipal announcements. So I'll turn the time over to the council for their various organizations and what they have to share with our audience, as well as those listening online.
Okay, well, I do have a couple of municipal announcements. The Davis Arts Council on the first and third Friday of every month through April, they have a free small stage series. And tomorrow they'll have it looks like a duet group called Hit and Miss. They have two shows, one at 6 and one at 8. And that's just across the parking lot in their small stage area. So that's the first and third Friday through April. Also, another local art group, On Pitch Performing Arts, they've got Beauty and the Beast Junior coming up starting tonight, actually, through the 23rd. And then February 3rd through 25th, they'll be doing an adult performance of Cinderella. So those are a few of the announcements I have.
Good. Some good things to do in the winter months. What about Parks and Rec? Do they have their Valentine? You guys want to announce that? That's probably about the only thing we have, right?
We have Valentine's dance. 10th, February 10th, 7 to 9. Got a great group.
I was going to say, are you performing?
Right. If you're not there, I'm going to remember who you were.
And where? Is it at the junior high at Central Davis as usual? Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. I think that pretty much takes care of our municipal announcements. We'll go ahead then and move on to our verbal petitions and presentations. And this is pretty exciting tonight because we're actually honoring several of our staff members. And I know all of us very much appreciate what you do day in and day out. And we recognize the fact that, you're the heart of this city. You're the ones that keeps it going, and we appreciate it. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to our city manager, Alex Jensen.
I told Dave he doesn't have one in here, so keep his hands off. Yeah, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. It's a privilege, again, as it is every time, to be able to recognize some of the city's outstanding employees. And tonight, as I look through the list, and I do this every time, they're just amazing employees, every one of them are. And like I say, it seems like that's always the case. But just a little bit of background for family members or others who may be attending. It's a small gesture, but it's a very sincere gesture. Is that 5-year increments, we try to recognize the employees who have given up their time and talents to the city. And if an employee's been with the city for less than 20 years, then we ask them then we take the opportunity to recognize them in front of their peers in their individual department staff meetings. But if an employee's been with the city for 20 years or more, we ask them if it's voluntary, but ask them if they'd be willing to consider coming to a public setting like this and be recognized more publicly, both to the people in the community and especially to the mayor and council, who are very supportive. This council is extremely supportive of the employees and recognize, as the mayor said, that most of the good things that happen in this community are because of you. So it's really a privilege to present these individuals this evening for recognition. And again, would just say that they are representative of so many other employees who are not here, but contribute equally to the city. Maybe I'll just say one more thing in terms of editorial. The other day I've been privileged to be with the city for quite a few years. And the other day was having a conversation with somebody that was surprised that I hadn't retired or left or been fired yet. But they were talking about all the good things they appreciated in the city and how much they enjoyed being a part of the city. And thanked me, or tried to thank me. I didn't accept it very well, but tried to thank me for all the service I'd given. And I said, the truth of the matter is, and this is the point I wanted to make, the truth of the matter is of all the thousands of decisions that and ideas that have been kicked around in the city all the years that I've been here, probably 1% or 2% of them came out of my head. The rest of them came out of employees who said, why are we doing it this way? Or why don't we do it this way? Or what about this? Or what about that? And if sometimes we've been lucky enough to listen to them and actually implement those. And these employees tonight are representative again of that very concept, is they're always continually trying to improve, make things better, look for ways to do things better. We have a lot of turnover in the city and, or have had, but we've been blessed. I use that word intentionally. We've been blessed with employees who have experience. They got a little gray on their temples. They've been through the wars, and they can still continue to be a wonderful example to those people who come in to the organization. They help set the standard, right? And the culture is carried forward, not by a plaque on the wall, but by these employees who have experience, who are saying this is the way we try to do things in Layton City. So I've said too much. I apologize for that. But just want all the employees and those of you who are here to support spouses, other important people in life, parents, brothers, sisters, we know that you're a part of the success of the city as well because you support your husbands or your wives or your daughters or other important people in your life, companions in whatever form that takes. We recognize that you're a big part of that. And say, again, finally, unabashedly, we love the employees of the city. That's our greatest product. It's our greatest, I was going to say asset, but that doesn't do a service. The employees is the very best thing about the city and why so many people want to work here. So anyway, I've said too much, but I'd like to recognize these people now. The first I'd like to acknowledge who's not able to be here this evening is Mr. Kim Weber. Kim is one of our planners. He's been with the city for 20 years. His wife had a recent surgery and actually today, and he needed to be home, obviously, to help get her settled at home. And so we'll present the award to Kim in his own individual department meeting. We have 3 individuals this evening from Parks and Recreation. The first is Mr. David Price. Maybe we can do them by department and then they come up together if that's okay. Dave is the department director of Parks and Recreation and has been with the city for 20 years. So Dave, we appreciate you. We also have Miss Natalie Flint. Natalie's been with the city for 25 years, and she's a recreation coordinator, so helps coordinate the recreation activities and programs that take place year-round in the city. And then last but certainly not least is Amanda Myers, who has been with the city for 25 years, and she is the A Parks foreman, and Amanda does an amazing job as well. All three of these are just exemplary employees. So what we'd like to do is have you come up and start over there and shake hands with Councilmember Roberts and just come around and let us congratulate you, and I'll give you a small token of appreciation.
Mr. Price? No, not even close. You know better than that.
Thank you. The next group of employees we'd like to recognize are in our Public Works Department. We have two of those individuals this evening. The first is Mr. Mark Bauer. Mark is the traffic control supervisor. The city just does a fantastic job. And then Mr. J. Dell Jakes. J. Dell's been with the city for 25 years, and he is a mechanic. Keeps our fleet of a myriad fleet of different kinds of vehicles running. So, Mark and J. Dell, would you come forward as well?
Sometimes.
Thank you, gentlemen. And last but not least, I hope she's here, is Miss Penny Faulkner. Oh, very good, Penny. Yeah, Paul's blocking my line of sight. So, Penny has been with the city for 30 years and has a very, very important job. She is the supervisor over the crossing guards that help to ensure that the children in the community can get to and from school safely, and does a wonderful job there. So, Penny, come on up. Again, 30 years. Again, thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to recognize and honor these wonderful employees this evening. And you know this because you've had the chance to interact with them, but they're amazing employees, but they're even better people. And that's the secret sauce of the success of this city. So commend them to you, and thank you for your support as well of the staff. And they speak about the staff all the time. That isn't always the case. in councils, but this council in particular is very supportive of the staff and recognizes the contribution of everybody, and not just certain departments, but every single person who gives and serves. And it's just it's a blessing to be involved in a city that has and elected leaders that have that kind of a mindset. It's very much appreciated. So thank you, Mayor and members of the council.
You know, and all I can add to that is I wish we could do more, because, I mean, we truly do feel that way and appreciate all the little things that go unnoticed. I mean, we do recognize them, but, you know, without those little things, it doesn't add up to the big items that I think our public and pretty much everybody's aware of. But it's rewarding to be able to work and be a part of this organization. I mean, we're not really working in my book, but I do appreciate what you guys do. Mr. Thomas?
I look out in the audience, and some of you guys have aged quite a bit, getting old. But I will say something, and I say this simply. I don't want to give you 5-syllable words that come from a lawyer, mainly because you wouldn't understand them and I wouldn't know how to say it. But you have created, in the span of the time which you've been here, and of course even before, but as far as I'm concerned, this is the best damn city. The way it's run, the way the people feel, and what we do. And I have no problem saying that, and I will argue with anybody that wants to argue with me, which is fun. And I enjoy it. But you are. And you look around you and you look at the things which you have done, especially for those that are coming into the workforce. They're being trained the same way. And that I'm very familiar with the Parks Department, Public Works. I was only familiar with them when they would buy me a drink up there in the pop shop. But you guys are solid, and I say that with meaning, and you know how I am. I'd rather speak out loud and basic than to go on, but you've done a good job, and you're doing a good job, and if you don't think so, come talk to me. Thanks.
Okay. Councilman Bloxham?
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilman Roberts and I were just talking about, we love seeing out there some of the employees who are not here to receive an award themselves, but are just here to support their fellow employees. And that says it all about the culture that we have here. So we appreciate you supporting your fellow employees, because it's an important day for them. So thank you for making the time.
Very well said. Are you wanting? Okay. Sure. Yep.
Thanks, Mayor.
I got to go with the eye look.
Okay, yeah, sorry. When you run for office and you don't really know how things run, and then you figure it out, you pretty quickly you understand two things. Number one, that everybody wants a place to call home, a place, a community. And number two, cities exist to provide essential services. And what you learn really quickly is those essential services are provided by people, real people, a family. And I'm amazed. Again, just I'll echo what Councilman Bloxham mentioned. You sit down here and you're like, well, whose anniversary is it? Because I see people that I recognize, and well, they didn't stand up. They're here for you, who were recognized. And that's just it. Again, it goes to the family feeling here in the city. So thank you. Thank you for taking care of our residents. Sometimes it's thankless. Probably is most of the time thankless, but not from us, and not from Alex, and not from your department heads, and not from your fellow employees. We're all in this together, and this is the best place to serve because of you. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you again. And just as that is along those same lines, just so you know, we've got joining us up here tonight with us is one of our youth council students, which is Lydia Garza. And we believe in the future of this city, and that's why we've invited her to come up. And as you see throughout this next year, we're actually, each meeting will probably rotate. so that they kind of get the experience of what it's like on this side. Because I know that they've attended our meetings, they've sat out there, but we believe in really educating that future generation. And so this is a great opportunity for them to join us. And so we just want to say welcome. Okay, I think we're ready to carry on. So I'll go ahead and move on to item number 4, which is our citizens' comment. And under our citizens' comments, anyone who wished to make a statement, I'll invite you to come up to the other side of the dais here and state your name and address for the record. And if we need further information, we'll ask for it afterwards or have you pass it on to our city attorney or the city manager. But the time is now yours for the residents, if anybody would wish to speak. Okay. Seeing that there's none, I'm going to go ahead and move on to our consent items. And now our consent items are, excuse me. What do you mean? They're part of the city.
They're part of the city,
Actually,
but they want to go home.
If you guys do want to leave,
Look at the
you
old
can.
people in the back trying to leave. Come on.
Okay, we'll give you a minute here.
Sorry. Hey, but before you go, hey. If there's other people willing to stay, more power to you. There's front seat row in case you missed it.
Front seat row. Yeah. You kind of just roll with it. Okay. I will now proceed on with our consent items, and our consent items are several items that can be acted in one single motion. And so with that, we will have the items presented, and the first item is going to be by Mr. Dave Price, our Parks Director, and it's regarding the Utah Department of Transportation project. So, Mr. Price? And while he's coming up, if anybody's here for the public hearing, then, we'll be glad to hear from you at that point. But in the meantime, on the consent items, it's not really the public isn't really invited up here. It's more about just procedural on our side. So, Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mayor. And Council, this evening I have the pleasure of introducing Resolution 2309 and Resolution 2310. Both of these resolutions pertain to a planned pedestrian bridge linking the Layton Frontrunner Station to the west alignment of Case Creek Trail and the commercial development on the west side of the rail corridor. This map shows the location of the pedestrian bridge as well as the Frontrunner Station. This one just shows a little closer level of detail that will demonstrate how that pedestrian bridge will affect the larger area. And then lastly, this one demonstrates how the pedestrian bridge is conceptually laid out to sit on the site of the Frontrunner Station and how it crosses the rail corridor to the west side. We also have demonstrated this evening for both of the resolutions our funding plan for this project. And as you can see, we have 3 grants that are secured. They total $7,600,000. And so that will cover the construction costs of this project. We have an internal request for $504. That helps us get started with some of the design work right away and then carry us through the project. For Resolution 23-9, it started back on June 7th of 2021 when Layton City submitted an active transportation project grant proposal through the Utah State Active Transportation Program, requesting funds to help construct the Case Creek Trail overpass proposed to span the width of the Union Pacific and Frontrunner Rail Corridor and touch down immediately next to the Frontrunner Station. The proposed overpass will connect the east and west alignment of Case Creek Trail to the Frontrunner Station and the downtown area of Layton. On September 23rd of 2022, The city was notified that they've been awarded $3.6 million through the UDOT State Active Transportation Program funds. A financial assistance agreement has been issued by UDOT to formalize the award of the monies. Staff recommends the council adopt Resolution 2309, authorizing the city manager to conduct negotiations and the mayor to execute the state aid agreement between Layton City and UDOT for funding assistance with the construction of the Case Creek pedestrian trail. Any questions on this first grant?
I don't have questions, but I think it's pretty valuable if you go ahead and speak to the fact that this particular crossing is also going to be ADA compliant, with the elevator as well.
Yeah, it will have an elevator that allows people that need it to move up to the top deck and then cross across that corridor. So it will be a very nice facility.
Yeah, this is I think a first-class operation as far as what you've got planned here. Okay. Council, do you have any questions?
Just a
Councilman
comment.
Morris, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Just kudos once again for securing grants for wherever we can get them, to the county as well for their that grant. It's just, you've got an $8 million project and using internal funds of $500,000 to create that great job. Thank you.
Well, it's always pleasant to be able to hear those thank yous, but I would like to give a special shout out to our parks planner, Joellen Grandy.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
She has been just tireless at writing and continually following up on these grants and does a wonderful job for the city. So we would
And I gotta
like
tell
to
you,
thank her as well.
She is good, and there's a lot of them that I've seen, and I just say, hey, what about this one? And she investigates and see whether we qualify or not, and has done an excellent job on that.
She has.
So, okay. There's no other comments, then let's go ahead and move on to item B, which Mr. Price, again, is going to present that information to us.
Thank you, Mayor. On June 30th of 2022, Layton submitted a grant proposal through Davis County's County Sales Option and Use Tax for the Transportation Fund's 2022 third quarter transportation sales tax revenue, requesting funds to help construct the Case Creek Trail pedestrian overpass proposed to span the width of the Union Pacific Frontrunner Rail Corridor and touchdown immediately next to the Frontrunner station. On December 6th of 2022, the city was notified they had been awarded up to $2 million through the Davis County's third quarter transportation sales revenue. These funds are to be used once all other matching grant sources have been extinguished. A reimbursement agreement has been issued by Davis County to formalize the awarded monies. Staff again recommends the council adopt Resolution 2310, authorizing the city manager to conduct negotiations with the mayor to execute the interlocal cooperation transportation project reimbursement agreement between Layton City and Davis County for funding assistance with the construction of the Case Creek pedestrian overpass. Any questions on this one?
Yeah, I'm glad you covered this in both items because I did come up with a question. Not come up with, but I remember the land acquisition on the west side where it landed.
Yes.
On the east side, was that already owned by the city or is it a cooperation with UDOT?
That is a cooperative agreement with
UTA?
UTA.
Okay, so it'll be on their property. Okay.
And as part of that project, let's see, they are also looking at this new trail crossing. So instead of moving completely to the south end of the Frontrunner station, you'll be able to move across there on the north end as well. So, thank you for your time.
One more question, Mayor.
Oh, please.
Sure, go ahead.
So with the county money, is there a timeline that it has to be spent by? Like,
The county agreement indicates that there's a 2-year period to complete the project. But as we've talked with them, and as they have on other grants, they are fairly flexible about that. As long as we're making faithful effort to move forward. So we feel very comfortable in that.
I just have one comment. I just want the residents to understand that these are all efforts for the city to try and help with walkability and access to different things, different locations. And so I just think it's great that there is funding available and that we have been able to request and receive it so that we can help make the city, more walkable for everyone and more usable as, we move forward in the years. And we want to make sure that we're preserving what we have access to. And so I think this is a good example of, offering ways for people to get to public transit, people to use trails and things like that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that we're looking at that and thank the Parks and Recs Department for what you're doing to help us meet those needs.
Well, thank you.
Very good. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to item number C. And Mr. Terry Colburn's going to present the next two items, which the first one is the interlocal cooperation agreement between Layton City and the Davis County Transportation reimbursement.
Thank you, Mayor. Bring before the council Resolution 2311, an interlocal cooperation agreement between Layton City and Davis County for transportation project reimbursement along 3200 West between approximately West Hillfield Road and Gordon Avenue, and along West Hillfield Road between approximately 3200 West and 3650 West. Resolution 2311 authorizes the execution of an interlocal cooperation agreement between Layton City and Davis County for transportation project reimbursement. The county requested the cities, the Utah Department of Transportation, and the Utah Transit Authority located within Davis County to submit applications for transportation projects to be reviewed for eligibility for possible funding by the county's 2022 sales and use tax for transportation. The city submitted a Davis County third quarter funding application to the county for the Layton 3200 West widening and West Hillfield Road widening project. The Davis County Council of Governments reviewed the application and placed the project on the 2022 priority list. The COG then submitted a priority list of transportation projects for review and possible approval to the county. The county approved funding for the project in the amount of $880,000. The county has agreed to partially reimburse the city for the permitted or authorized cost, expenses, or otherwise incurred by the city in connection with the project and in a manner consistent with the terms and provisions of the agreement. The city has agreed to complete the project within 2 years from the date the agreement is executed by the city and the county. Staff recommends the council adopt Resolution 2311.
Okay, any questions? I will make the comment that I'm excited to see this get done, in particular the one that's going straight west, because I do know that was an area that was very hard to, to deal with early on. I know you guys had to deal with a lot of different barriers and trying to keep people off that. So this will be nice to get this road finished. Those folks out there have asked for it for several years. So thank you on that. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Bring before the council Resolution 2306, a land conveyance agreement between Layton City and Robert S. and Linda K. Perry, located at approximately 3290 Fernwood Drive. Resolution 2306 authorizes the execution of a land conveyance agreement between Layton City and Robert S. and Linda K. Perry for an equitable exchange of 2 parcels of property and to establish a public utility and drainage easement as part of the lot alignment adjustment process the Perrys have proposed to the city. The grantor owns real property located at 3290 Fernwood Drive, Layton, Utah, Davis County. A portion of their parcel falls within the Fernwood Drive right-of-way. The city owns a remnant parcel, of real property located at 3290 Fernwood Drive between the back of the existing walk adjacent to the Perry's property that falls outside the Fernwood Drive right-of-way. Perry desires to convey property 1 to the city and to acquire property 2 from the city. The property located at 3290 Fernwood Drive does not currently conform to the city's standard setback requirements, nor is there a public utility and drainage easements recorded on the property. The land conveyance agreement facilitates the equitable exchange of the respective properties to align the city's improvements within the right-of-way and will establish a 7-foot public utility and drainage easement, allowing the public utilities to maintain the current improvements. Staff recommends the council adopt Resolution 2306.
Any questions, council? Okay, seeing that there's none, I'll go ahead and bring it back to the council
Thank you.
for action regarding the consent items. Thank you very much, Mr. Colburn. Okay.
I move that the council adopt Resolution 23-09 for the UDOT Active Transportation Grant. Item B, Resolution 23-10 for Davis County's Transportation Sales Tax Revenue Grant. Item C, Resolution 23-11 for the Interlocal Cooperation Agreement between Layton City and Davis County. And item D, Resolution 23-06 for the Land Conveyance Agreement between Layton City and Robert S. and Linda K. Perry.
Perfect. Is there a second? Second. Okay, it's been moved and second that we adopt the consent items as presented. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move on down to our public hearing portion of our meeting. And what we'll do is we'll have Mr. Chad Wilkinson go ahead and present the information to us. And then at that point, I'll call for the council to open up the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is as was mentioned, an amendment to our general plan, specifically the moderate income housing element of our general plan. Back in September of 2022, the council adopted an addendum to the general plan for the moderate income housing element. That addendum included some strategies and implementation measures that were required by state law. Those strategies and implementation measures were reviewed by the Department of Workforce Services staff as outlined in state law. They had requested that the city provide some additional modifications in order to comply with state law. We were given a time frame of 90 days to complete those. Those are due by February 18th. We have made those changes, which predominantly consist of clarifications regarding timing and implementation measures. Those have been reviewed already by state again, Department of Workforce Services staff. They've indicated that those will be acceptable, and the purpose for tonight is to adopt those changes. So we have included a copy of that ordinance in your packet, which has all those changes outlined, and we are recommending approval of those changes. I will note that because this is a general plan amendment, it requires the review and recommendation of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did review these proposed changes to the general plan and has forwarded a recommendation of approval. So with that, we are recommending approval, or we're recommending that the council approve Ordinance 2303, which will adopt these changes to the general plan, specifically the housing element, the moderate income housing element of the general plan. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, council, do you have any questions? Councilman Morse?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Chad, you mentioned we added the plan to the moderate income housing plan to the general plan. That's also part of state law, that municipalities have to add that to their general plan.
Yeah, so we already had a moderate income housing plan as part of our general plan.
No, I understand that, but it has to be part of your general plan.
It does.
The cities, for the cities. That's my question.
It does, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I'll call for a public hearing opening. I need somebody to motion to go into.
I move
public-
that we open the public hearing.
Okay, the time is now yours to be able to speak on behalf of this one item that is part of our public hearing. So if anybody would wish to speak regarding the general plan amendment, you're welcome to come up to the mic and state your name and address for the record. Okay. Seeing that there's no comments, then I'll go ahead and bring it back to the council to close the public hearing, and then we'll call for action.
Madam Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing and adopt ordinance 2303,
Yes.
general plan amendment for the moderate income housing plan element addendum.
Okay, it's boomed and seconded that we go ahead and adopt the plan as written. So with this, I'll do a roll call vote. I'll start out with Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilman Bloxham,
Yes.
Councilman Morris,
Yes.
Councilmembers Smith Edmondson,
Aye.
and Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, that shows that it passes. That's actually our last item on our business. I do want to thank the past councils that have been involved with that general plan. I mean, this is an ongoing plan that we're constantly looking at and tweaking and updating. So, I mean, it's been an ongoing effort, and I think that there was a lot of effort given several years ago to create this general plan. So I just want to say thank you. And with that, council, if there's no unfinished business, I'll call for a close.
Aye.
To adjourn.
Ask to be adjourned.
Okay. All in favor? Wait, I guess a second, but technically you should have a second.